Hey everybody, we're back with another new City Catechism video. This week, question number 6. How can we glorify God? This question is kind of a callback to question number 4, which asked how and why did God create us? And part of the answer to that question was that God created us to know Him, love Him, live with Him, and glorify Him. Okay, well, how can we do that? How can we glorify God? Answer, we glorify God by enjoying Him, loving Him, trusting Him, and by obeying His will, commands, and law. I'm going to kind of start at the end and work my way backwards through this answer. Obeying God is part of how we glorify Him. After all, glorifying God basically just means displaying His glory or reflecting His glory, drawing other people's attention to His glory, making them aware of His glory and making them focus on His glory. And part of God's glory is His character, what He is like. So anytime we live in ways that reveal what God is like, we glorify Him. Anytime we live in ways that are shaped by what God is like, we glorify Him. And how do we know what those ways of living are? Well, we find them in the words of Scripture, in His commands, His law. But here's the thing, just because we're obeying God doesn't necessarily mean we're glorifying God. For example, we could be obeying God because we're scared of Him. We think, I've got to do the exact right thing or God's going to get me. Or we could be obeying God for our own sake, obeying Him because we think if we do, then He'll do stuff for us. We do a little bit for God, and then He makes us healthy and wealthy and happy and prosperous and successful in all of these things that we want. That kind of obedience doesn't glorify God. And that's why the first part of this answer is so important. When we love the Lord, when we discover who He really is and what He's really like, and how worthy He is, how deeply He loves us. And our response to that is to love Him and to say, I want to do things that please Him. I love you, Lord, so much that I want to do things that make you happy. That kind of obedience glorifies God. When we trust Him, when we're convinced that He really can be trusted to take care of us, that His way is the best way, that He can and will provide what we need, and that the way of life laid out in His law and in His commands can be trusted to be the best, safest way for us to live. That kind of obedience glorifies God. And ultimately, when these things come together, when we love God and we trust Him and our obedience flows out of that, then we can truly enjoy Him. Which may seem like a strange thing to say, enjoying God. But ultimately, many of the great confessions and catechisms that the New City Catechism is modeled after used this phrase, enjoying God, as one of the main reasons that we were created. Because again, God created us for His glory and for our good. And the greatest good we can experience is to enjoy God, to enjoy a relationship with Him, to enjoy who He is, and to find that in obeying Him there is joy. That indeed following Him does lead to joy. The way of life He's given us does lead to joy. And if that sounds crazy, if the idea of obeying God not because we have to, but because we long to, because we delight to, if that seems crazy to you or sounds crazy to you, that's just part of the Christian journey, is discovering to enjoy the Lord and to delight in obeying Him. If you've always thought of God's commands and His law and His will as burdensome, as a thing you have to do, as like a checklist of chores, I hope you can discover, as we continue on this journey together, what it means to enjoy Him, to find that there is indeed delight in doing the will of God, because that's what we were created for. We'll never find greater delight or greater joy than when we are what we were made to be and do what we were made to do. And ultimately, what we were made to do is to glorify God. And again, that's what we're seeking to understand better as we gather as a church on Sunday mornings and in other contexts. We're seeking to go deeper on this journey of learning to delight in God, to enjoy Him, to delight in His Word and in obeying Him. I hope you'll join us for that this week if you're able. And as always, leave your questions or insights in the comment field. And we'll be back next week with question number 7. That's all for now.